Back in the day when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore. But some days I really wish I was a kid again, kid again, kid again. I kid you not when I say my back in the days had to be pushed so far to the back of my mind, set to be closeted for survival's sake, but not today. Surviving in the end days with a clash of back thens with right nows, squinting my eyes, shifting in seats, sifting through memories despite millions of promises to forget. Reminiscence used to set my stomach to ache, but not today. See, when indifference ate all love and to live is to hate, apocalypse of empathy and vulnerability for passion and self-achieved freedom. We're numbing, we're dumbing down to survive, we're dying to survive. I'm dying to survive, giving me the audacity to squint, shift, and reminisce, daring to glimpse open doors in the dark, raised hands, hangers, belts that yelped my bark, shuddered the lark and caged this young bird, and still expected them to sing songs of freedom like, I am here. In this dire quest to forget, I recall my back in the days as not all bad, because in these end days, my memory is all I have, and closeted forgetting to forget. I wish I was a kid again, kid again, kid.
Wow.
Thank you again.
What a powerful, beautiful poem. And I felt the force of the heart and also the resonance of the words. So I've got your bio here. There's so much about you. So I'm just going to introduce you in your own words. Well, you have done that already through the poem, but just a little bit of how you describe yourself. So Lakhiyia is a spoken word consultant, is a public health cultural shapeshifter, a freedom art alchemist, inviting us to remember who we are, call all of our fragmented parts home, and get your power back. Depending on our community needs at hands, this may mean masquerading as a business consultant, a poet, a participatory action researcher, singer, director, dancer, curriculum developer, a joker, an educational curator, drawing forth leadership wrapped in radical authenticity, you name it. So you hold a bachelor's from Northwestern, master's from USC, Cornell University, certificate in women's entrepreneurship, lecturing years at UCLA, and is currently a critical disability studies adjunct instructor in the Portland State University School of Social Work. You're also involved with the Theatre of the Oppressed, and this multidisciplinary background is the way that you've weaved your craft. And you started a movement which are taking this message all over the United States.
Yeah, I love that you're characterizing it as a movement. That certainly is the heart, right? To be moved. And art is beautiful in the sense that it can take you somewhere. And sometimes we need to be taken to new realities and new possibilities with our imagination so that we can actually collectively heal and transform and create new structures that make love the most easily accessible option. So we can have a love ethic be our norm. So yeah, I come from the world of theater and pedagogy, theater of the oppressed, which is all about moving ourselves from passive objectivity objectivity to being active subjects in co-authoring new ways forward. So to literally get our power back. There's so many things about our world that tells us that we need to just sit back and let life happen to us. And I believe that when we heal, the power automatically comes back to us. And what a beautiful opportunity to heal outside of isolation. So when I founded Home Place, consulting and retreats, it is definitely imagined as a space, a healing vortex, multiple healing vortices all over our nation, but also our world, for us to do that work in an environment that kind of has conditions to ease the process for us. And it's for us to opt back into our self-healing power. So Coringa is interesting. You read that in the bio. In Portuguese, it's like this this kind of green room dojo, type of space. It's the rehearsal for the revolution, the rehearsal for real life transformations, and it's the preparing us. And so we create like simulated reality exercises and whatnot through theater that reflect the real challenges that we experience out in the real world. But we do it in a safer container, with the supportive, community. And then we try on different ways of intervening that get us closer to love. Yeah, because I truly believe that belonging is our birthright, and freedom is a fact that gets to be embodied. And sometimes it must be, enforced and safeguarded due to the current context that we live in. But it's ours. And I think I often share the meaning of my name, which is home. And the story actually of how I learned about that was not lived before I named home place. So it also the timing of it all kind of reaffirms that I'm moving in a purpose that I'm catching up with as well. It's like the movement that I'm stewarding, like it's stewarding me as well. And so my grandmother shared with us at the beginning of the pandemic that her granny was from Haiti. And so in Haitian Creole, and also Issaquosa, my name means home. But my dad came up with my name, just putting letters together on a little sheet of yellow paper in the hospital. So it's almost like my granny's granny was in his ear, like letting him know that this kind of human, Black, queer, non-binary, and Bible belted in the Midwest, will need the reminder in the name that I belong. And that's the medicine that I try to move with every day, that when I meet people, when I hold space with people, that you feel at home. So it's the name home place.
It's such a beautiful and important message to feel at home, because I think in my country and in the United States, there are many people that do not feel at home, either in their bodies or in their countries. Yeah. And I think much of the present conflict that we're experiencing on so many levels is this feeling of disconnection, of not belonging, of not feeling that we have power to change anything, which lowers our vibration, doesn't it? And it's like, well, why should I do anything? Why should I even vote? Why should I spread anything? Because it's kind of fixed. So going back to maybe the sources of this disconnection, I'm sure that that's something you've discussed enormously over your career. But if you could just sum up what you think the main sources that, as humans, because we can put ourselves in all these categories, but as humans, that we've disconnected from our source, from our own power, from our own sense of belonging.
Yeah, so as a part of the work, we talk about healing as a process of calling all our fragmented parts home to a whole free us again. I believe that there are spaces that we experience, traumatic events, and a little bit of our spirit, our power is held up in that room, in that office, in that space, in that city, that country. And so we get to call it back, to ourselves. And so it's calling ourselves home to ourselves, and to our authenticity, because I feel like therein our authenticity lives our dopest, most unique, and effective leadership and value contribution to the world. And so I think when I imagine, when you talked about, source too, and the locus of our, like, the ruptures between ourselves and like amongst ourselves, between, you know, folks who have been in conflict, but also like within ourselves. I think it is connected to that authenticity. Like, who are we really? And, you know, if you go into Instagram and you see in my bio, it definitely says a spirit of love having a human experience. And I believe that, like, my authentic self is a spirit that's not bound to this body. It's just inhabiting for this time. I've chosen to incarnate and move with this energy of belonging and home and you know, collective healing and you know, I grew up Black Baptist and had to, you know, kind of find love in the kind of embodiments of religiosity growing up. It was definitely a fundamentalism that had no room for a kind of human like me. And so I still felt the presence of perfect love, and that being the core of Christ consciousness for me. And so I held on to that. That had room for me. And I do believe that when we look at the scriptures, you know, and what, you know, Jesus was actually saying, it was a call to relationship. It wasn't a call to religion. Jesus was not saying, oh, let's just, you know, all be Christians. And so I think the call to relationship was a call to perfect love, to, you know, the Lion of Judah, which is power, you know, the living waters, which is life, you know. And so are we feeling that? Are we moving towards love, towards connection in how we move and interact with each other and ourselves, you know? And so I think coming back to our authenticity as spirits of love having a human experience, and that we are made in God's image, who is perfect love, who is 100% love, like cannot choose anything other than unconditional love. And, you know, without choice, there can be no love. So it's a consensual love. It's a love that says, you have all the free will in the world. And I'm also inviting you to build a relationship with me that you can trust and surrender in, because you know that you know that you know that I have your best interest in mind, nothing more, nothing less. And so for me, at the locus, you know, of, you know, every type of like conflict that we're experiencing is an inauthenticity at the core of our being, at the seat of the power that's within all of us.
Do you think that society breeds into us a feeling of not being enough? That unless we have this, that, or the other, unless we present ourselves in this way, then we're not enough, and we keep on striving. This feeling inside is that somehow that we're lacking something.
I believe so, and I've heard marketers even, you know, critique their own, you know, profession and what we're kind of incentivized to do culturally, right? Because I love for us to think about transformation on every level. So like the individual level, the interpersonal level, the organizational level, the communal level, the, you know, structural level, and across the systems, right? So the invitation is to transform and collectively heal on all of these levels, and to not, you know, scapegoat one or the other. But oftentimes, like our language, and even in movement spaces, we put the onus on the individual, or we put the onus completely on the system, and then we don't hold ourselves accountable for our individual decisions. And so I believe that there is a culture steeped in capitalism. And I'm hearing like Malcolm X in my head, like, you can't have capitalism without racism. You also can't have capitalism without any other systemic oppression, homophobia, classism, ableism, you know, like cis heterosexism, nativism. You can't. And so all of these systems of oppression that tells us that we're not enough and we don't get to belong are interlocking. They verify in each other. And so yeah, I do believe that there is, it's like some people say, like, I don't want to have those conversations, you know, that's not my lane. I'm neutral. But if we use the analogy, and I forgot where I received this, it's some article or book, but like gave the analogy of systemic oppression as a moving train. So even if you are stationary on a moving train, or even the little, you know, moving walkway at the airport, if there were to be a crash, you're going to add to the force of that blow, even while moving, you know, not moving, because you're on a moving train. And so the invitation is to actively, right, not passively just sit in neutrality, but to go the opposite direction of the energy and the force of the culture, the soup that we're swimming in, right? To go the opposite direction, create a counter current that insists on our aliveness and our connection and a love ethic. And so, yeah, I do believe that within the context of you know, marketing and consumerism, capitalism tells us that we are lacking something, so that we can go then and buy something, a product or a service, right? Because, you know, we have that similar type of energy flowing even in our health and wellness, you know, industry. So like, go out and get this thing and then you'll feel, you know, whole again. And the truth of the matter is that we came whole, we came full, and we just get to remember that. And hopefully spaces like Home Place are spaces where we can remember and membrane, you know, those truths.
I love the way that you discussed that shamanic earlier in the conversation, that home place is a place to come home. And all the parts of ourselves, I mean, it's that shamanic journey of that encounter that happened in life. It could be when we were very little and we lost energy there. We decided to withdraw from that because of another encounter. And there comes a time where you think, it's time for me to be myself again. And it's something that comes in later in life. You know, sometimes it comes way later, and sometimes it's always known. I need to belong to myself. I need to choose love, unconditional love, because that's how I came into this. That is the true message of Jesus. That, you know, he only really said two things, which is to love yourself and love your neighbor as yourself, and that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. That's his Essene philosophy, the essence philosophy. And what was interesting is how we live in these times of so many ruptures and division, but there's so much light, and people like yourself just reminding us that beyond the politics of separation, of blame, and of shame in particular, there is healing in reclaiming who you are and choosing differently.
I love how you language all of that. So thank you so much. For feeding that back. So
It's a
what
pleasure.
actually came up, there's so much power in words. If we look at the scripture and we, look around, everything that we see and everything that we are was spoken into existence. And so there's power in our tongue. We speak new worlds into existence all the time. And so I appreciate the intentionality of language. So speaking of that, I often refer to myself as a recovering people-pleasing perfectionist. And I think, like coming out of, a childhood, not just as, a person who was blackened by, systemic oppression, who knew myself to be queer, as early as watching Lion King when I was 6, and and also I didn't have the language around non-binary, but back then it was like, tomboy and, you know, things like that. And I was happy with hand-me-downs from my brother, you know, whether we could pay for clothes or not, you know. And so I think in those conditions that told me that, hey, Lakhiyia, you have a lot of great skills and good energy and whatever, like we want that, but we don't want you to be your authentic self. I think I learned that I was here to support and serve the world, and I don't necessarily get supported.
Yeah, and you're saying that, but only if you show up in this particular way, because then you can be included. So just lose all that other part of you that we're not interested because that doesn't fit with our paradigm. We love your energy and your intelligence and your passion, but all the other bits of you, can you please leave that behind? Yeah. I think many people can resonate with that.
For sure, for sure. And I remember we were doing a diversity requirement. We reimagined it as a truth-telling, storytelling based show when I was teaching at UCLA for new student week, like the welcome week type of time. And we were talking about how I kind of described it, like showing up to doors and opening up, you know, my human, and trying to figure out which parts of me are going to be welcomed inside and which parts aren't going to be allowed, and then kind of like set those to the side of the door, and then like keep all the other ones and kind of build them up a little bit more, puff them up, and then close myself back up and suture up my personhood and go back in, you know, to this space and show up 110% as I'm expected, as though I didn't do all of that work at the door, you know? And so it's also this dignity reclamation journey of reclaiming my self-worth, my self-esteem, my self-regard, and learning how to live a life where I'm not continuing to do the work of the people around me in childhood. And so, yeah, so I think about the how of the other offerings that we have. We have events, like a weekly event space called Self-Healing Sundays. And it's called that, you know, because sometimes we come to, you know, counseling sessions or even healing spaces, healing retreat spaces, and we look to the host to heal me, heal me. And I'm the first to say, I am no one's healer except my own. Like this right here is my only site of liberation.
Okay.
I am skilled in curating healing spaces where we can opt back into our own self-healing power. You do the work, you know? And if I have the power to empower you or even heal you, I believe that I would still have the power to disempower you or unheal you at any point, because there's a relationship, like a power differential that exists between us.
Yeah. And yeah, I was about to say that it's a question of power. And you look at some of the, and I'm going to put quote unquote gurus, and people flock to them to say, like John of God, I can think of one of them. Oh, he has miraculous powers. And if I go there and I'm doing the same thing of just submitting, he will do the work for me and I'll go away. And your message is, no, you do the work. You have the power to heal yourself, but you need the environment to do it. The environment, the love, the support, the collaboration. And that's the space I understand that you create.
Definitely. Yeah. And the tools, you know, because there's like different ways to call ourselves home. Like, I feel like now we learn about tapping, you know, different types of tapping, butterfly tapping. Yeah. These different ways, breath work, right? The breath of life, having different breathing patterns to do different things within our bodies. Because our bodies, like, God is incredible. Our bodies are designed to self-heal. So when I think about, I interviewed chiropractor in Austin, Texas, a Black chiropractor, and his mom was like the front desk person, so Black-owned business, and he was just like, I love the body, and I love helping us get back into alignment so that our bodies are in optimal position to self-heal and regenerate, and so we are designed to do that. It's just there are tools, there are spaces, there are also our relationships, you know, that supportive witnessing of healing outside of isolation. And I use that language specifically because I feel like so much of my journey, I was self-witnessing and like quietly, like talking about and processing my experience. Or, I was also a survivor of childhood. I am also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And so to have that layer as well of self-silencing and suppression, there's something within like liberation psychology that we would call like learned helplessness. So in art therapy, sometimes another tool, like if children are drawing, just their experience, and, we're trying to figure out what's going on with little ones who might not be as verbal yet, or maybe be pre-verbal or non-verbal, they might draw themselves with no hands. And so we know that or they might have injuries or that kind of come out of nowhere around their wrists. And so there's this feeling of learned helplessness. That's the language. And so this incapacity to help myself or to free myself or to get myself out of a situation. And when I think about the statistics too, majority of the time where someone is harmed, it's by someone they know, And so that's when you think about the stress and trauma responses of fight and flight, we hear those two most of the time. I grew up with only those two. It wasn't until I was like deep in my 20s that I learned about freeze and fawn. And fawn is that like, I'm going to comply with whatever, like you ask of me so that I can, lessen the blow or, not bring more pain onto myself. And the freeze, is just, part of oftentimes is in connection to the fawning. But if there's someone that you love and respect, and they're a family member or they're a trusted, person in your community, a community that's been groomed by this person, as a charismatic, narcissist, whatever it might be, right? We might not fight them because we also love them and we can't understand why they're hurting us. And we might not be able to flee because they're in the house, that we go to sleep in, we wake up in, And so when I learned about freeze, it was like, oh, like now I can actually befriend myself again. And because there were moments where I felt like I was betraying myself, like, why did I not scream, as loud or fight back, and it's I think learning about the kind of science of it all too, and how our nervous systems work, and and it was like, oh, okay, so my body did what it needed to do to survive me, and now I'm here. I've survived, and now I can thrive.
Exactly. So you have that strength and that ability to say, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to get through this. And then there's a settling in as though that's the state. And I think your message is saying, no, it's not. That's not who you are. Things happened to you that weren't loving. They weren't kind. They were abusive. In fact, they were downright evil. And I do remember a client telling me, this was years ago, about her situation. And the idea that somehow she was collaborative in this was just incredible, because that was the mind control that was happening in that circumstances. So I think this message of you have everything you need, but you need the community. That's what you bring. You bring the tools, you bring the community, and you bring on the love in a big way.
I appreciate that.
I saw you in New York City. I know you're from Carolina, but you've been all over the place. So where are you traveling with this message across the States?
Yeah, everywhere that I am invited and wanted at the mic. I'm originally from outside Chicago, in Rockford, Illinois, and you shared earlier I went to Northwestern for undergrad, and then I found myself in Ireland through New York University, their graduate study abroad program. exploring like community theater and kind of theater in non-traditional spaces. And so one of those spaces was the women's prison in Northern Ireland. That's
Wow.
where I first did theater of the oppressed. So, and that was wild because no matter what your offense is, everyone goes to the same place. And so, yeah, it was, quite the spectrum of experience. And and so then from there, I went to USC in LA. And so when I was in LA, before I got to LA, actually, and I usually describe it this way. So I kind of exiled myself to Ireland through this program, right? So education had been like this kind of, safer space for me navigating my queerness. And I was about 21 when I finally came out to myself. And that was only after deep hermeneutical study of those clobber texts that people use to condemn homosexuality. And I looked at the true context of, who was speaking, who were they speaking to, and, and reading the text in the Greek, the Hebrew, the Aramaic. So before it was translated into English and, Eurocentric value systems and, and even the propagandistic projects of, religion. And so I got to the root, of what was intended. And I found for me, and in my prayer journey and constant, conversation with God, who is perfect love, I was just like, if you believe that I'm omniscient and omnipotent and I don't make mistakes, how can I have made a mistake with you? You're beautifully and wonderfully made. Go in peace. Go in peace. You're not a monster. Go in peace. And so,
yeah, that reminds me of the sticker in the church which said, God made me perfect, which is God made me as I was meant to be. And I might not look like you. I might not sound like you. I might not love like you. I might not have the same opinions as you. I might eat differently to you and I might vote differently, but I came from a place of love. And I think that's the most important thing. That is the most important thing, that where we came from, who we are. And this almost like this sleepiness of not remembering who we are, and this journey back into love, which is the Marianne Williamson, the journey back to love. I just think I can know it's your life work, and your journey towards there. Now, your journey in other places, you say you show up with the mic, you do retreats, you do other events. Is there anything that you can tell about to our listeners where you might be next? So if they are in the United States, maybe they can check you out.
Yeah, absolutely. So even though I, exiled myself to the Republic of California in LA through that master's program, I ended up staying there for 12 years. And when I got there, I wanted to have, and I wanted it to be fertile soil for me to blossom self-love in a way that I couldn't in my hometown, right?
Okay.
And so I found Founders MCC. MCC is Metropolitan Community Church. And there are metropolitan community churches all over the world.
Yeah.
And so I've been to those as far as Cape Town, South Africa. And recently I was on the East Coast performing Get Your Power Back at MCC DC and MCC New York. And so just a couple of days ago, last Sunday, I was back at Founders MCC and I shared Get Your Power Back there, which was the first time sharing that poem there. I premiered Sermon I Wish I'd Heard. That's a longer form spoken word theater piece about how I blossomed self-love in those conditions of my childhood and upbringing. And then it ends in how it almost took me to the space of suicide ideation. And then how it ends with me imagining the sermon I think my younger Lakhiyia self needed to hear growing up in those conditions. And so then I kind of like have costume change, put on the stole, grab the Bible, and I deliver this sermon I wish I'd heard. And so, and it begins and ends with song. So yeah, I premiered that there. And so I toured that piece as well.
Okay.
For like longer form theater. And there's a workshop, an hour workshop that is participatory that I invite people into, because in terms of movement, I would love for all of us to write the sermons we wish we heard.
Oh, wow.
To,
that...
you know, yeah, to really, speak a new world into existence and to self-heal, through the power of liberation arts. And yeah, and there's so much power in the process of making art, in viewing it and taking it in reflecting on it, talking about it, and responding to it. And so I want to always be engaging each part of the healing capacity of art making. So next, and right now I'm actually in Houston. There's MCC Houston here, and so yeah, and Nolans and Atlanta. And I'm currently based in Charlotte. I was called to Charlotte 2 years ago I didn't know what the assignment was, but I ended up transforming the space I was called to inhabit into a retreat space, and providing burden-free access to respite for those of us who need it the most, when we need it the most. So it's been serving people who serve other people. Those folks who are like first responders, kind of don't often keep their cup full, but they keep pouring into others. And so you might have,
That's a really
someone...
important point, that caring for the carers,
Yeah, exactly.
the exhaustion it can take. You're looking after people constantly, through love, but you're depleting your own resources until you could get to a point where you resent it. So that's a really important thing. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. And so, yeah, we have some folks who come and like after a long day's work, they'll come to home place and recharge, like lie in the hammock. I'll do the singing bowls. They might sit on a settee and do the foot massagers, whatever it might be, to pour back into themselves. And then they
Wow.
go back home and with a cup full to be ready to pour into their family, their little ones who are like, I need, an emotionally present, accessible and responsive parent. And they can do that because they have these spaces. We also offer emergency housing. And oftentimes that is, in situations where folks are like fleeing, domestic violence or intimate partner violence, or, trying to bounce back, on purpose, with purpose, for purpose, in the words of Monica Dennis, from abject poverty or, housing insecurity. Because oftentimes folks are just a few words away from living out of their car or whatnot.
What I really love about your work and what you offer at Home Place is also not just words where you show up and do your beautiful work, but you also do there's the practicality of it. There's places for people to go, as you say, to get the hands on the shoulders, the hands on the feet, the cup of tea that they need, a pair of ears if that's what they need, whatever it takes to get that person feeling that they can breathe again, that they can feel themselves. But the wider message of that self-love is the way, and self-empowerment, and that we all came from the same source. Very powerful. So before because I know you have another call to jump onto, so I want to respect your time here. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners? I'd love to have you back on again because there's so much that we can talk about, but is there anything that you can leave us with?
I appreciate that. I know you wanted us to share a little bit of the poem. You would be audience of one. To say, get your power back, which is the chorus for the poem. If you're open, to playing with me, with that participatory poem, let's end with that.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Yes. So I often say that this is my breakup letter with bondage. And so I'm inviting you all to speak, get your power back, whenever I gesture towards you. And this is a way to re-energize our collective self-determinism. And so I want you to also like bring that energy. If you have to stand up or, stomp or whatnot, like feel free in your body, come home to your body. And I want you to fight for my freedom like it's yours, because it is. If I'm not free I'm not free. Y'all aren't free, and the same goes for you, right? With me. So give me something to push forward with, right?
Gotcha.
So let's rehearse that. Get your power back. Get your power back.
Get your power back. Get your power back.
Reclaim embodiment, rehome in your body. Come into full voice, one spoken word at a time.
Get your power back. Get your power back.
Human gavel strikes again.
Get your power back. Get your power back.
Simultaneous push-pull, every action coexisting with an equal counteraction. Gaining the courage to do me, you entice with the comfort of conformity, but that's not for me.
Get your power back. Get your power back.
Bobbing in and out of authenticity like an iceberg in crippling cold tides, 99.9% of my mass suppressed below the surface. Beneath my masking facades, tap dances, self-silence, suffocating on what I'm allowed to divulge. The truth of me, the life of me, the real me bobs up. And the undertow of your expectation sucks me back down.
Get your power back. Get your power back.
Juxtaposing the uncertainty of ambition to the belittlement of your implicit suggestions, I recoil. My dreams, rights, are minimized to mere hallucinations. So into your notions, I conflate, losing myself in the process of your way. Mine's always on trial.
Get your power back. Get your power back.
A mindless drone is your plan for me. To lack purpose, appetite, zeal, creativity. Striving to be more than what is ridiculous. No. I get it. Like Dr. Evil. You want a mini me, a mini you, a Robin to your Batman, a Flunky to your Letterman, a dependent sidekick, anything to keep love and freedom from being the main event. So mimicking you with a pinky to the downturn corner of my mouth, I to your low standard stoop, and refrain from questioning the status quo or evidence of what we think we know. A seed of infertility you sow, oxymoronic, I know. Yet on this tide, I flow, comatose, and up sprouts a zero. And don't complain, groan and moan when there's cypresses lifeless on your couch, taking up space, sucking up air, and putting nothing out. You wanted a drone, remember?
Get your power back. Get your power back.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness can't be a gift of the present, but a taunt of the past. A necessity for our trendsetters, our inventors, our forefathers, our yesterdads. Seems we aren't entitled to creative thought if it means ideas from outside the box. Seems we stand on the shoulders of giants, but aren't meant to shoulder the weight of future brilliance. Of course, that's considered defiance. So I bob in and out of consciousness, in and out of acceptance.
Get your power back. Get your power back.
But I choose consistence, persistence, wholeness as my resistance. Resilience and self-ownership. My existence is no burden. Lived experience is embodied knowledge, all asset, no liability. Efficacy in my leadership when I am fully me. I've birthright to be fully free, despite the versions of American dreams written for me, despite the evidence of his, her, their story still happening, and what I hear and what I feel and what I see. I was born free. I am free. I am still free.
Get your power back. Get your power back.
Your liberation will always be wrapped up with me. Ubuntu, in Lak'ech, Aloha, Sani Bonani. Because if I hurt or harm you, I harm me. And if you hurt or harm me, you harm you. You are my other me, so say it with me.
Get your power back. Get your power back.
I am free. You are free. May we always be we. Thank you.
I am speechless. That's the second time I've heard that. And online, it has just the same effect, different, but the same power within it. I want to thank you so much for doing this. I know we connected the first time we met. I know that we're going to stay in touch. I love what you shared. It's beautiful. It's important. It is the truth. And with that, I want to thank you. And I'm going to put all your details in the show notes. I know you need to hop off to go off to another meeting, so I'll let you do that, but I'm going to leave you with my love and thanks.
I'm sending you the same. Thank you so much for the invitation and holding the space with me. I really appreciate you, and I love what you're doing. for this
Thank you.
podcast. I can't wait to hear it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Till next time.